I have the honor to speak today to our most welcome fellow craftsmen and fellow craftswomen from Canada. For it was given to me once to see Canada en bloc. This was one prodigious sweep from Quebec to Victoria and back again. To feel the moral pulse of a land and a people, free as their own airs, and yet set in most ancient and sane practice of justice, honor, and self-control. But not till long after my return did the significance of them begin to break upon me.
Rudyard Kipling was, in his time, the most popular writer in English. He was known on every continent. He grew up in India. His parents were civil servants in India. He was a reporter for a couple of different journals in India, and he was constantly traveling throughout the length and breadth of India, writing stories and learning his trade as a writer.
I would say that he's best known for being the writer, the poet, the animated figure that was able to travel the world and capture through his own creative eye the understanding of cultures and worlds that perhaps potentially his readers would never be able to witness.
I remember reading the Jungle Books very, very thoroughly when I was a teenager. The Jungle Books, in fact, there are two of them, give the stories of a boy who was brought up by animals in the jungle and became a kind of prototype for, I suppose, Tarzan.
He had this very astute ability to, almost as though he was wielding a paintbrush. He would take his literary ability and capture these amazing, exotic vistas to be presented to his readers in Europe.
Everywhere he went, he was a rock star. He was a celebrity. Crowds would greet him wherever he went.
And so for him to come to Medicine Hat was probably considered to be a very, very big deal.
Rudyard Kipling visited Medicine Hat on 3 different occasions. 1889, when he was on a long trip back from India to England. For some reason or another, he ran short of money. He got associated somehow with a hobo, someone who was riding the rails in freight cars. And he came with that hobo and came as far as Medicine Hat. That hobo made the prophecy in 1889. See that town boy? He said, you remember her because she's born lucky. At one point, Kipling said, what is your luck? You're the town that was born lucky. What's your luck? And they said, well, it's our natural gas. We have an immense, unending supply of natural gas.
Natural gas is what has helped differentiate Medicine Hat from some of the other communities on the prairies.
In 1883, the CPR was looking for water near where they were building the railroad tracks just outside of Medicine Hat and accidentally discovered gas.
In the earliest days, if somebody wanted to sink a well in their backyard, they just went ahead and did it.
Settlers were flocking in, and the industry started to appear. You know, it was going to be the Pittsburgh of Canada.
In 1907, the mayor heard from a CPR conductor that Rudyard Kipling was doing a tour of Canada. So because Medicine Hat was moving forward and becoming this industrial hub, the mayor thought it would be a great promotional opportunity and a great honor if Rudyard Kipling came here.
And of course, if you're trying to sell your town, what better than to encourage someone like Kipling to remain over for a period?
He arrived on the morning train in October of 1907. He stopped over and had breakfast at the Alberta Hotel, which was the grandest, probably the grandest building in town at the time.
And he was the guest of the city. He was shown everything.
The city officials had arranged for this car tour around Medicine Hat to show him what a great place this was.
He was taken around to the gas plants, to the brick-making plants, to the farms. He was motored around. There's quite an amusing article in the Medicine Hat News from the following day about the adventures of Kipling in the motor cars, how several of them broke down, but a good time was had by all.
Back in the early 1900s, whenever visiting dignitaries would come to Medicine Hat, the town council would light up one of the gas wells.
So this flame would shoot 200 feet up in the air from, the standpipe that maybe was a foot or two or three above the ground.
And it's then that he said, "This region has all hell for a basement," a phrase that has become a kind of second city slogan.
He did a huge favor to Medicine Hat in confirming the identity that this city, this community was developing for itself. He recognized the uniqueness of the natural gas, the abundance of it. He recognized the pioneering and the adventurous spirit that had got Medicine Hat to that point. And apparently, Mr. Kipling was somewhat intrigued by the name Medicine Hat.
Kipling said, it's a name that people are curious about, and he said, I was one of those ones that was curious. That's one of the reasons why he came, was to see what kind of a place it was that was called Medicine Hat.
I can remember as a child sort of asking myself and my parents, and Medicine Hat, what does that mean?
Since the early 1900s, or even before that, there's been debate about what the real answer is.
I believe we tried to count the number of legends, the variations of the legends, some of them are very similar, that are housed in the archives in Medicine Hat. I think there was somewhere, I'm going to, if memory serves me, around 20 of them. And James Sanderson's was the one that was more mystical.
Sanderson set up operations here. He was an entrepreneur, did many, many things. He used to drop into the Medicine Hat News and would tell them various stories or news items that he had learned. One of them being how Medicine Hat got its name, and I think that ultimately led to Jim Marshall's mural at City Hall, his brick mural.
It's a Blackfoot story that goes back to the dog days before they had the horse. They were starving, they ran out of their supply of buffalo, and they held a band council to pick their best hunter to go down the river to the breathing hole in the river where they felt that there were spirits that could help them. He pitched his teepee where Strathcona is now, and he walked around the open water calling on the spirits, and this great serpent rose out of the water and said, "You have a problem, what can I do for you?"
He said that I will give you what you seek to bring healing to your people. However, there must be a sacrifice.
You have to sacrifice your young bride to the water spirits. So he killed his dog and threw his dog in to fool them, but they weren't fooled.
And the spirit came forward and said, no, she must be given. So she was thrown into the water.
And they told this young warrior that in the morning, where the sun shines first on the great cliffs you will find your Saamse, or we say Saamas. What that word means is holy war bonnet.
But once he received this hat, he was able to heal his people. He was able to defend his people. He was able to see that his people thrived.
So when the CPR came here, they were looking for names for towns. So they heard this legend, how the medicine man got his hat, Medicine Hat. And it's a great name.
In 1910, there was a motion put forward to change the name of Medicine Hat.
In their words, and I'm quoting from some sources that I've read, it smacked too much of the Injun and the teepee fire, and therefore wasn't as saleable to some prominent Eastern Canadian, Central Canadian business person as Gasburg might be, for instance. Gasburg, what a thought. I mean, really, we have a hard enough time living down Medicine Hat, the gas city, quite frankly, because that's sort of part of the branding of the city. Rudyard Kipling kept up a correspondence with several people. He developed friendships here. He was more than just a tourist. And so when these people were considering, what are we going to do to stop this ridiculous situation, he very quickly came to mind as the person to engage.
In November 1910, Francis Fatt, who was one of Medicine Hat's first postmasters, he was involved with the Anglican Church, and he was very much considered an outstanding citizen, wrote this letter to Rudyard Kipling, said, these newcomers are talking about changing our name, that we shouldn't be called Medicine Hat.
The turnaround from the letter from Francis Fatt to the reply from Kipling is really very fast. The letter was published in the city paper. He analyzed the arguments that the name changers used.
Rudyard Kipling said that it's absolutely ridiculous to change your name because you think your existing name, Medicine Hat, doesn't look that good on a business proposal, or some American newspaper is making fun of you.
And he came to the defense of the name by citing that there is a strong legacy, there's a strong kind of even spiritual component to the name itself, and that the Indigenous legends need to be honored. He speaks about the fact that Medicine Hat as a name is almost an emblem for the land itself, the fact that it is a place of strength, of endurance.
And he ended his rather long letter by saying, what would you call a town that sold its name? You'd call it Judasville. That was all it took. And the plebiscite on the name change was defeated about 10-1. And since then, no one has dared to suggest we change our name again. We would have a different name if Kipling had not contributed his thoughts on that subject. I think his help instrumentally affected the plebiscite.
We have this unique name, we have this unique identity, we've got Rudyard Kipling to back it up. You know, I think that was a great reinforcer of that identity.
So we have a name. Let's embrace it. Let's celebrate it. And again, that's what I feel Kipling was doing. And we should continue to look at that, no matter where we live, what makes us unique, what makes us distinct from other places.
Strictly between ourselves, I think that this is an occasion on which we are justified in feeling a little proud of our calling. We know that when all the men who do things have done them, and after all the men who say things about those doings have said them, it is only words, nothing but words that live to show the present how men worked and thought in the past.